بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Technical difficulties. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Regarding the Khilafah Abbāsiyyah, one of the no doubt most famous, prominent, and with due right muluk or kings of the Abbāsiyyah was Hārūn ar-Rashīd. After the short period of time that Musa ibn Mahdi, who is called al-Hadi, ruled from 169 Hijri to 170 Hijri, his brother Hārūn ar-Rashīd, who is also the son of Mahdi, came into power. Regarding the time of Hārūn ar-Rashīd, looking in the books of history, Muslim and non-Muslim historians have praised him as one of the greatest kings of all times. Not just in Islamic history. You find many non-Muslim historians, and I've looked at some of the works of the Roman historians as well in preparation for these durus. They claimed he was one of the greatest kings ever to live, even though they were enemies to him, and he defeated them in many wars, and they talk about those, but they still praise his leadership. Islamically, when we look at the ulema of Islam who discussed him, they mention this, that he had a lot of good qualities and he had some bad qualities. These muluk, these kings that came in the later times, all of them have to be judged in a fair manner. Meaning, you cannot compare them to the earlier Sahaba radiallahu anhum, who were excellent role models for the ummah. And you also view them to be much better than those that came later that were drunks and fornicators and those. So these kings, some of them, at least when they stuck to the Kitab wa Sunnah, when they stuck to the Sharia, when they were people who loved ulema and loved jihad fi sabilillah, you have to accredit that. And Hārūn ar-Rashīd no doubt had many good qualities. Now we'll talk about some of them inshallah. One of the things that ulema like Ibn Kathir and al-Dhahabi and others have mentioned, that Hārūn ar-Rashīd loved to perform Hajj, and he loved jihad fi sabilillah. And he made a tartib for himself that he would rotate between those every year. 1 year Hajj, 1 year jihad. If he was going to be in that Mu'sam al-Hajj, many times he would be fighting jihad the rest of the year and then still performing Hajj. So, that's a very good quality. Loved to perform Hajj and loved to fight fi sabilillah. One of the poets, he wrote a long poem praising him, but I will mention what is relevant. He said that if you want to meet Amir al-Mu'mineen, either go with him to the battleground, the place where the soldiers are waiting for the war, go there to the barracks and meet him, or in the Maidan, or in the field of Arafat, in the plain of Arafat. Subhanallah, today if you want to meet a king, who knows what you may say, where you might find him, but I doubt those are the two places that you would mention. He had a great love for jihad, and he was known to be very brave. He didn't just fight jihad like in a battle how people do today, where he's sitting in a castle surrounded, or in a house that's white, or a tower or something like this. He was in the battlefield. He would be sword in hand in the battlefield fighting fi sabilillah, and it shows his braveness. He also loved knowledge. He loved the people of knowledge, and he loved knowledge. He had an interesting relationship with some of the ulema, but most of it was very positive, and we'll talk about some of that inshallah ta'ala. From his good qualities, I will mention what Tariq has recorded about him. If you look at the fact that when Western historians have to document kuffar, have to document the good qualities of a Muslim king, no doubt there was something special about him. A woman who was a European woman, a woman from Europe, of European descent, that became a Muslimah, that became a Muslim, living in the lands of Sham, yani in the lands that were between the Muslims and the Romans. The area of Sham itself was under Muslim control, but yani if you look at the areas which are current day southern Turkey and then so on into Europe, most of that was the Byzantine Empire. The actual Roman Empire was now centered around there. So some of them, they captured this woman, and she wrote a letter to Hārūn al-Rashīd. Now this is very important, because she's just one woman. Yani it's not like there is some big political, she's not like the sister of some politician or something like this. She's just a Muslim woman. And she wrote to Hārūn al-Rashīd, she said, look, the Romans have captured me and they are making dhulm on me, and you can imagine what type of dhulm kuffar make on women when they capture them. And she said, you are Amir al-Mu'mineen, yani who else in the dunya can I reach out to other than you? Hārūn al-Rashīd, he read this, he started to cry. He took every Muslim to be his responsibility. He was Amir al-Mu'mineen. So for this one woman, he took an entire army, collected the whole army of the Muslim world, and attacked the Romans and defeated them. Even in Western historians, there is a historian, his name is Paul Julius Alexander, and he's a Roman scholar. Even in his writings, he said that one woman, she wrote to Hārūn al-Rashīd. Hārūn al-Rashīd brought an entire army, and Hārūn al-Rashīd headed the army himself, sword in hand. And he didn't just send an army, he went himself, sword in hand, until he freed that woman. He freed the Muslim captives, and he asked, who is this woman? And when he found her, he freed her. When she was gone, she was happy. He praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where are our leaders today? I wish we had a means to just remind them that where are you today when you are the leaders of this ummah, when you are the kings and presidents and prime ministers, and when you are enjoying the luxuries of in that life, when we have our Muslim sisters in imprisonment camps in China, in Kashmir, in other lands of the Muslims that are imprisoned and tortured throughout the Muslim world, where are you? This is a responsibility of our leaders to look back in our history and see what does it mean to lead the Muslim ummah. The Romans were defeated in this battle, and almost every battle that I found from Hārūn al-Rashīd against his enemies from the kuffar, alhamdulillah, he was victorious. He was known to be a shuja', to have ghira, to have that self-respect, that honor and brave attitude. And this is why he would say that he is not just a ruler for the people under him, but for all of the mu'mineen, for any Muslim living in any land could reach out to him. Subhanallah, I wanted to point something out that's from one of the other khulafa muluk that come just to make a point. Mu'taz Billah, he was a leader that will come in Abbāsiyyah later. But in his time, in what is current day Turkey, which was under Roman control at the time, there was a Christian woman, not a Muslim woman, a Christian woman who was arrested and was being abused in a prison. She wrote to Mu'taz Billah, and she said to him that I am a woman of the people of the book, but I'm being oppressed, I'm madloom, come to my aid. And he went with an army and attacked the Christians who were torturing and massacring other Christians, and freed that Christian woman, and freed the people who were being oppressed, and did not take the area under his control. Rather, he set up the jizya for them and let them rule. But he wanted to make sure there's no oppression of anybody on earth. Subhanallah, when the Muslim is upon following the Quran and Sunnah in the way he rules, he is concerned even of oppression on non-Muslims. He wants to make sure no human being is mistreated, no human being is tortured, no human being is violated. And he would risk, Hārūn al-Rashīd, he risked his whole kingdom, his luxurious life that he could have been living as a king. He risked all of that for one woman. Subhanallah. And today, our leaders are so worried about their little pockets of power, about their little influence in a government, that they will hand a Muslim, an innocent Muslim, to a kafir to be tortured and then dhulm on, just because they're afraid for their own seat, their own power, their own kingdom. what about when they face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment? Yani Hārūn al-Rashīd didn't care about what if this war ends up in me getting killed or me getting my kingdom taken, or how much will it cost and what does one woman matter? No, each Muslim was his responsibility. Where is that for us today? Hārūn al-Rashīd, he used to be a person of ghira, yani of honor. And we find in Tariq one of the Roman kings, and his name in Islamic history books is called Naqfur. Naqfur, he was a Byzantine Empire. I found him in the Roman books of history as Nikephoros, Nikephoros. I don't want to mispronounce that in its whatever Latin pronunciation or Roman, but I found him in the books of the non-Muslim historians. Paul Julius Alexander, for example, the Roman scholar, he also wrote about this incident. He said that Naqfur, and in the Islamic books in Arabic, he's called Naqfur. He wrote to Hārūn al-Rashīd, and of course, this is in the Kutub of Islamic Tariq as well. He said, "Min Naqfur Malik al-Rom ila al-Hārūn al-Rashīd Malik al-Arab." He said, from Naqfur, the king of Rome, to Hārūn al-Rashīd, the king of the Arab. He didn't say the king of the Muslims, because in their mindset this was a racial issue. And he told him that Irene, who used to be the queen before him, her name is Irene, she used to pay jizya to the Muslims for the part of the land that the Muslims controlled and protected, and for the people that used to be there. And he said, from now, because she was a woman and she was weak and she paid jizya, but from now, we are not paying any jizya, and between me and you is a sword, if that's what you want. Hārūn al-Rashīd, he got upset. Yani, he said, how dare he speak like this to Amir al-Mu'mineen? How dare he look down at what the Sharia has implemented from adl and insaf and jizya and things like this? He got upset. The ulema of Tariq, they wrote, the ones who were there that narrated this, this is a type of hadith as well. He said those that narrated this, not marfu'an obviously, but who were there, they said nobody could speak to him. He was that upset that even the wazir or the counselors that he would have, the wuzara, they couldn't speak to him because of the ru'b he had, because of the awe that he would bring in the people. When he was upset, people didn't try to talk to him. When he calmed down, he wrote a letter back, and this has been recorded in the books of Tariq. He said, Min Amir al-Mu'mineen. He didn't say Min Malik al-Arab. He didn't say from the king of the Arab. He said from the leader of the believers. Why? Because in Islam, it's not about nationality. It's about the people of Iman. Every Muslim is the same in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except whoever has more taqwa, has more piety, has more awareness of the halal and haram. That pious person, no matter what religious background or racial background or nationality they may be from, or what language they speak, they are the ones closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the leadership of the Muslim has to be based on Iman. It cannot be Palestinian cause and Kashmiri nationalism and the Uyghur movement and this. No, it has to be about the mu'mineen and about Islam, and that's when the nusra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes. When it's pan-Arabism and when this nationalism gets into it, there is no barakah in that, there is no nusra in that. Then it's just a matter of power and politics and so on. He said, Min Amir al-Mu'mineen, Hārūn al-Rashīd, ila kalb al-Rom, Naqfur. Yani, he said, from Amir al-Mu'mineen, the leader of the believers, Hārūn al-Rashīd, to the dog of the Romans. Yani, kalb in Arabic is a very harsh word. And he didn't say, oh, min Amir al-Mu'mineen ila Malik al-Rom. He didn't say to the king of the Romans, even though the king of the Romans had written such a way to him. He said, no, it's the dog of the Romans. He called him Kalb al-Rom. He said, to the dog of the Romans, he says, know that Allah has ordained this jizya, and this is what you have to pay. And if you don't pay it, then you will find us at your door before you even hear about us coming. And before your spies tell you we're coming, we're already going to be at your door. And before he could even get a response, he had prepared his armies, he set out, and there was a great battle between the Romans and the Muslims. And alhamdulillah, Hārūn al-Rashīd was victorious again. And as I said, he had great victories against the Romans. There was a lot of turmoil that the Persians and others had tried as well, and he was always victorious. A very strong warrior, very strong in his ability to win battles. He won battles all the way into modern day China, into modern day Turkey. He spread the area under the control of the Abbāsiyyah during his time. Not only was he successful in military campaigns, no doubt he had a great love for knowledge. And I will mention some of the things that show his love for knowledge. Hārūn al-Rashīd had a son named Amin, and he had a son named Ma'mun. Amin was from his wife Zubaydah, and we'll talk about her inshaAllah ta'ala. And Harun and Ma'mun was Hārūn al-Rashīd's son from a woman that had come to him through ghanima, from the people that came under battle. But Hārūn al-Rashīd treated them equally in their education, in their nasab. They were both from the same father, and gave them the equal rights until he even educated them equally. And he sent them to Imam Malik to learn fiqh and to learn hadith. And at this time, Imam Malik, as we talked about earlier, he was writing the book of hadith called Muwatta Imam Malik. The Muwatta Imam Malik, as is preserved, alhamdulillah, till our time, was one of the earliest books of complete books of hadith. A complete book with chapters and titles, and the fiqh of Malik explained in short lines and things with each hadith, and complete work, and an amazing work, a very authentic work. So he sent his children. He didn't say Imam Malik to come and teach in my house, or I'll pay him like the people do, at least the better of the muluk do today. No, he told his children, you have to go to Malik. You have to go to the scholar. You are the children of the king, but that doesn't mean that the scholar is going to come to you. You have to go and travel to Medina. And you have to go and sit at the feet of Imam Malik and study with him, respecting him, honoring him. These are princes, but they had that adab and akhlaq towards Imam Malik, and they learned the Muwatta Imam Malik. And then he told them to continue. He sent them to Misr, to another great scholar named Abdullah ibn Ta'ir, and other a'imma and ulema of that time were teachers to his children. Imam Malik was one of the greatest scholars of that generation. And at this time, Imam Malik's already been, as we discussed him in the earlier durus, he's already established his knowledge and his ability. Hārūn al-Rashīd, he went to Medina, he saw Imam Malik, he called Imam Malik, as the earlier kings did as well, to come to Iraq. Imam Malik said, I don't leave Medina. I love this Madinatul Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I don't leave this city. Only time Imam Malik left Medina is to go for Hajj. That's it. He didn't even go to meet a king or at the request of any king. No. Hārūn al-Rashīd sat in the halaqah, in the dars of Imam Malik. Imagine a king comes, Imam Malik didn't get up and say, oh, the king is here, forget the dars. No. He continued his durus. He was teaching his hadith. So Hārūn al-Rashīd sat in the dars. Then Hārūn al-Rashīd told him, as we talked about earlier Khilafah as well, he told him, look, I want your book to become the standard for the whole ummah, the Muwatta Imam Malik. And I want your madhab, your fiqh, your understanding to become the standard for the whole ummah. That the whole ummah would be following Maliki fiqh. And Muwatta would be the standard reference for the whole ummah after the Quran. Imam Malik, a second time now, a second Khalifa has given him this offer. He told him no. He told him, look, we are people who are trying to derive the truth. So we collect a hadith to know what Rasulullah did. And it's a very important point to understand. He said, and others are collecting as well. He knew there were other a'imma and ulema that were collecting a hadith. And he said, they may have collected something that I missed. So if I make my book the only book, then those other ahadith that may be the ones that are closer to the truth will be left out. And imagine if Hārūn al-Rashīd had said, no books of hadith except for the Muwatta, all that we have in al-Bukhari and Muslim and the Musnad Imam Ahmad and the Musannaf of Abdul-Razzaq and other books, then those would all be lost, or at least they would not be utilized. And Imam Malik said, I am trying to derive the haqq And what if I am mistaken in it? And if you make mine the only opinion, then what if somebody else came to the truth before me? Subhanallah. Yani, today we look at the madahib and you look at the ignorance of many of our Muslim ulema, where they take an opinion or a madhab and then they think this is the only thing that should be taught. Yani today, even if you want to have a Khalifa, somebody will ask, is he Hanafi? Somebody came and asked me if Mahdi alayhi salam comes, will he be Hanafi or Shafi or Maliki? And they're worried about the madhab in fiqh of Imam Mahdi. He is the Mahdi. Follow him. That Allah has ordained for him to come and lead the ummah. Rasulullah has told us that he will be coming. Don't worry about if he's Hanafi or not. And this is something ajib today. Somebody will go and there'll be an imam who maybe he follows the fiqh of a Shafi'i, and somebody will come, we're not going to pray behind him. Why? Does he not know Quran? Does he not know? No, he's not Hanafi. Subhanallah. You think Imam Malik, when he would lead Salah, and if Imam Abu Hanifa was there, he wouldn't pray behind him? Or if Imam Malik had ever gone to Kufa and Abu Hanifa was leading, you think he wouldn't pray behind him? You think a Shafi'i wouldn't pray behind him? You think Imam Ahmad wouldn't pray behind Shafi'i or Shafi'i behind Ahmad? Any ignorance. Look, these are all imma and ulema, they're not anbiya. They're all working towards the truth, but not every mas'ala of one imam will always be correct. And that's a big responsibility you're putting on one alim, that every single mas'ala, whether it's ibadat of hajj and salah and siyam, and whether it's zakat or whether it's mu'amalat, or all of that, he's 100% right every time. Come on. He's not a Nabi of Allah. Only Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam deserves that type of obedience, because he's the messenger of Allah. So here, these a'imma, these ulema, these scholars, we love them, we respect them, we follow their fiqh and their ijtihad, but we don't make them ma'asumeen. And we don't say they can never make a mistake. Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi, he strove his hardest to find the sunnah. In some things he will be right, some things he will be wrong. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi is the same. In some things, in some fatwa he'll be right, in some things he's going to make a mistake. Al-Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi is the same. Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahmatullahi alayhi is the same. He will be right, sometimes he will be wrong. How do we know? Zin bil kitab wa sunnah. You weigh everything, you measure everything with the kitab, Quran, and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the sahih ahadith. That's how you will know. And this is the madhab, this is the way of all of the a'imma. Ashal hadith for madhabi, you find this from Abu Hanifa and other a'imma and ulama, the most authentic of the ahadith, that's my madhab. So that's what you have to look for. Imam Malik, he didn't believe that you should just have blind taqleed of whatever he says. Rather, he told the Amir al-Mu'mineen that I have what I have put forward, let what other ulama have said put forward, and let the ummah figure out what is correct with the evidences that we present. Hārūn al-Rashīd loved the ulama. And this is something interesting I found in Tariq, that when Abdullah ibn Mubarak, one of the great a'imma, one of the great scholars of this ummah, one of the a'imma that many of the ulama have felt had his own madhab, that's how great of an imam he was. Abdullah ibn Mubarak, when he died, ta'ziyah is paying condolences to the family of the dead. From the sunnah, that when somebody dies in a household, you give the condolences and you bring food to that family. Not that you go there and eat from them and make a burden on them and have all kinds of functions. No. Fatiha and all these bid'at that they do after the death. No. But for 3 days, you try to send them food so that they can be worried about having the burial arrangements done and have time to ponder upon life and death and get over this loss that they have suffered. Not that you put more stress on them like people do nowadays. So, ta'ziyah was done to the family of Abdullah ibn Mubarak. Hārūn al-Rashīd ordered his people that come and do ta'ziyah to me. But Hārūn al-Rashīd is not related to Abdullah ibn Mubarak. They said, why? He said, because he is from the ulema of this ummah, and the death of the alim is a harder suffering, is a harder pain to bear for me than my own family members dying. I feel more sorrow at the death of an alim than for the death of my own family. Subhanallah. Look at the respect, the adab he had with the ulema of Islam. Today, we don't have that respect. We don't show that etiquette with the people of knowledge. I mean, do we give preference to them over our own families? And he did this. He sat to accept the ta'ziyah, and the people came and they gave ta'ziyah. O Amirul Mu'mineen, may Allah forgive Abdullah ibn Mubarak and give you sabr for his death. Subhanallah. And he would sit there and cry, as if his own brother had died, as if his own father or mother or family member had died. This is how much he loved the people of knowledge. Just as a story that from Tariq, just to give you an idea of how our earlier generations dealt with ulema. When Abdullah ibn Mubarak went to Khurasan, he was coming back to Iraq at one time, and the people of Iraq, they became so happy at his return, they went out to greet him. And as he was going to go back to his house after going to the masjid, when he was on that path, stores were being shut because people were coming out. People were saying, who is coming? Oh, Abdullah ibn Mubarak, he's back, alhamdulillah. They were happy, they were going, and he was walking, and people were on the side of him and behind him. And it was such a commotion that Zubaydah, the wife of Hārūn al-Rashīd, she heard it from her castle. She heard it from her castle. She opened her window from within her castle to look out, and she saw this big group, and he saw this big commotion in the city. She asked, what's going on? He said, Abdullah ibn Mubarak has come back from Khurasan. She told her husband, subhanallah, now who's her husband? Khalifa, the Amir al-Mu'mineen, Hārūn al-Rashīd. She told her husband that it seems like Abdullah ibn Mubarak is the real Khalifa. He's the real Amir al-Mu'mineen, because people are not this excited when you come back. She's a wife, she had to take a shot at him. So she said, when you come back, it's not such a big deal. But when Abdullah ibn Mubarak is coming back from Khurasan, look at the big deal that's being made in the city. Now Hārūn al-Rashīd was very intelligent. He loved the people of him. He didn't get upset. He didn't say, how dare the people honor him more than me in this, like the people today would. No. He told her, look, the ulema are muluk al-qulub. The ulema are the kings of the hearts of the people. وَنَحْنُ, and we are muluk al-siyuf, like we are the kings because of swords. And he made a very intelligent observation. He said, look, a president or a king or a dictator or somebody, usually they come into power through force, and they hold on to their power through force. Even these elections and democracy, don't be fooled by all of this. You think anybody can become president? You think somebody can just be a very intelligent doctor tomorrow and run for president and not go through the two parties and not go through the skulls and bones and masons and this and that, and not go through that political good old boys club and become president? It's not happening. You think tomorrow if a state decided we don't want to be under Trump or under Obama or whatever, they can succeed? No. They can try to succeed, but the military will be at their borders. It's all by force. So he said, look, we are by force, but these ulema, these scholars, they are the kings of the hearts of the people love them. And that is a greater loyalty, a greater benefit when somebody loves you and respects you and has that respect for you in their heart. If you put fear in somebody with the gun or the sword, they will fear you as long as you have that sword to their neck or their gun to their head. But the moment that's gone, they're going to rebel, they're going to hate you, they're going to curse you, they're going to throw you out. Like what we see with Gaddafi and other people, how they end up. But when somebody gains the respect of people in their hearts, then those people will love that person, will protect that person, will make dua for that person. And even after the death of that person, they will remember and make dua for them. Zubaydah, now that we mentioned her, I will mention some things about her as well. She was a very pious woman, well known in the history of Islam. She was the wife of Hārūn al-Rashīd. One day she saw a strange dream. And because she was a very pious woman, she was disturbed by this dream. She saw a dream that all of the people under her kingdom, and under her husband's kingdom, all of the ummah that was alive at that time under the Khilafah, is coming and making zina with her. And it was something that shocked her. It was a disturbing dream to her. She saw it to be something bad. But as dreams go, it's not something for people to just make interpretation of any way they want, because this takes knowledge. So the most knowledgeable of people in that time regarding ta'bir al-ru'ya or tafsir al-ahlam, yani with dream interpretation, was Ibn Sirin. No doubt, Ibn Sirin, the great tabi'i, the great scholar, he was a great explainer of dreams. So she sent this question to her. She said, I saw this dream, what does it mean? Ibn Sirin told her it's a good dream. It's not a bad dream. It's a good dream. And what does it mean? It means you will do such a service for this ummah that will bring great joy to them. So she said, what should I do? He told her, he gave her an idea. He said, dig a nahar, or a stream or a canal for water to go to parts of the ummah where it's needed, like for example in Hijaz. SubhanAllah, she's in Iraq. And she took her wealth. She didn't just go buy gold and jewels and luxuries. No, she used it to benefit the ummah. She had a canal dug to bring water all the way from Iraq to Hijaz, to where Mecca and Medina. And if you go even till today, like for Arafat and Mina, you will see it. I saw it myself many times. And I pointed out to some of the brothers that were with me in the last time and the time before that we went for Umrah and the time we were there for Hajj. You can still see it as even though, I mean, there's no water in it right now, but you can see the traces of it. And you can see where it is in the sides of the mountain, especially when you're going for Arafat. Also when you're going from Mecca to Medina. So she had this canal dug all the way from Iraq to bring water to the people to performing Hajj and Umrah, and those in Mecca and Medina who didn't have enough water, those in Arafat and Mina. And may Allah reward her. Everybody who drank from that water for centuries, she will get the reward for. As far as benefiting the ummah and having that taqwa, Hārūn al-Rashīd was also in the forefront of all of this. Very often do we find in the kutub of tariq like Bidayah wa Nihaya and tabaqat of the other imma and ulema, that they mention Hārūn al-Rashīd and his fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even I was looking at some biographies of ulema, and in their biographies Hārūn al-Rashīd is mentioned because those ulema would go and advise him and he would cry out of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was very strong, he was very brave, he was a great military commander, a great warrior and fighter, but when he was reminded of the akhirah, he would cry. Not cry from fear of anybody, but from the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was a strict follower of the sunnah. One of the ulema, and I found this in his biography, and he's one of the rijal in hadith, yani one of the narrators in hadith. He's one of the narrators in Bukhari, and from the very top level of authenticity of narrators of hadith. His name is Abu Muawiyah al-Darir. Abu Muawiyah al-Darir. His actual name is Muhammad ibn Khazim, but his kunya is Abu Muawiyah al-Darir, al-Darir being his nasab. So Muhammad ibn Khazim, he was a great scholar. In his biography it's mentioned that one time he went to Hārūn al-Rashīd. Hārūn al-Rashīd loved to have the tullab ilm and ulema come to him. So when he was there and he saw him, he told him, read some ahadith for me. And other people, wuzara, ministers and stuff sitting, he told him, read some ahadith to us. So Abu Muawiyah al-Darir, he read a couple of ahadith, and I'm going to summarize. The first hadith he read is from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's authentic hadith where Rasulullah said, I wish that I would become a shaheed fi sabilillah. I would become a martyr in the path of Allah. And then life would be restored to me and I would once again sacrifice it for the sake of Allah and become a shaheed again. And then life would be restored to me and I would become a shaheed again. When Hārūn al-Rashīd heard this, he started to cry. He started to cry. He said, look, even the Rasul of Allah, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the last Nabi, Khatam al-Anbiya sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he loved to become shaheed fi sabilillah. What about us? And he cried and he made a niyyah to always be in jihad. And you will find his whole life, he's always going out for jihad fi sabilillah, to become a shaheed fi sabilillah. And he would make dua for Shahada, and this is something we've forgotten today. Today, all we're worried about is our comforts and our luxuries and our what I'm going to eat and what I'm going to wear and what I'm going to drive and what people are going to say and how can I increase my luxurious living. All of us have this disease today that we have forgotten about sacrificing for the akhirah. Look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is a messenger of Allah, no doubt guaranteed Jannah and all of that, but he's asking Allah, oh Allah, I wish I had more than just one life to give for your sake. Today, if somebody tells you that go do this and you might get hurt, you might lose an arm. For the sake of Allah, everybody's like, oh, what? Lose my arm? I'm not trying to lose my arm. What is an arm for the sake of Allah? What is your life for the sake of Allah? Who gave you that life? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying that I wish that I would be given a life that I could sacrifice and then another one and another one. And this is the way of the Salaf of this ummah. Like we find in Abdullah ibn Hudhafa al-Sahmi, and he was also a Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that was captured by the Romans. And when they boiled a person alive and they killed somebody alive in front of him and told him, we're going to kill you, leave your religion, leave Islam, we're going to kill you. And they showed him an example, they killed somebody right in front of him, it's not a joke. He started to cry. He said, look, he's become afraid. He says, no, I'm not crying because I'm afraid of dying or being boiled to death or the torture or pain. I'm not afraid of all of that. What am I crying about? I'm crying because I only have one life to give for Allah. It's not enough. I wish I gave more. Look, I'm not fulfilling the haqq of Allah. Just one life. He said, I wish I had life like the hairs on the body of the believer. So I could sacrifice one after the other in one of the rawat. In one of the rawat, he said, I had a life after life after life to sacrifice all of them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I wish every one of them I could be tortured and killed for the sake of Allah. Even then, that would not be enough. This is the way of thinking of the Salaf, where they realize the debt they owe to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they realize they can never fulfill that debt and they can never pay Allah back for all that Allah has blessed us with. And whenever they would sacrifice for the sake of Allah, they would say, this is not enough of a sacrifice, I wish I could do more. Even if it meant giving their life, they felt this wasn't enough. They'd love to do more for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hārūn al-Rashīd, he would cry at this nasiha. He told him, read more to me. So he read a second hadith, again an authentic hadith. And it's a longer hadith, I'm going to summarize again, where there is a discussion between Adam alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam, he tells Adam alayhi salam that, look, you are the one that Allah honored by creating you with His own hands. And Allah blessed you by putting you in a beautiful Jannah. And you had this wonderful life. Why did you eat from the tree? And you put yourself in hardship and put the rest of us, all of us would be in Jannah now. So Adam alayhi salam, in the hadith he responds to Musa alayhi salam, he tells him, you have the Torah, the book that was revealed to Musa alayhi salam. He said this was written 40 years, and one of the riwayat it says 40 years before I was created. And before Adam alayhi salam was even created, the kalam of Allah is not makhluk, it's ghair makhluk, all of it. But it was written down. Allah had ordained it to be written 40 years before the creation of Adam alayhi salam, according to this riwayah. He said, so in that Torah that you have, that you read, don't you find the story of what happened to me? He said, yes. Musa alayhi salam said, yes. He said, then you know that before I was even created, this was all meant to happen. It was meant that people would come in this dunya. It was meant that we would be tested. So Adam alayhi salam answered him with a dalil from his own book, and from the book that was revealed to him. This hadith is the Jami' hadith. It has so many fawaid from understanding qadr and sin and tawbah and all these things. I can't get into that here because this is not a dars about that. It's in al-Bukhari, in the Shuruh Bukhari, when we used to study the Sharh of Sahih al-Bukhari, we explained this hadith in great depth over days and took the fawaid from it. And we ask Allah, if Allah gives us tawfiq to have a dars on the Sharh of Bukhari, then inshallah I will, or even Mishkat, Masabih, because that also has the hadith, I will explain it in detail. But here, what is important is he mentioned this hadith. One of the people sitting in the halaqah, in the gathering, in the circle that was hearing this hadith, was one of the ashraf of Quraysh, one of the leaders, one of the honored, one of the big shots, like you could say today, of Quraysh, who was a relative of Hārūn al-Rashīd, and he was a very powerful man and a very honored man. But when he heard this hadith, he kind of half mocked it. Like he made a mocking remark, and he said, when did Musa meet Adam? And he made a comment like that, because we know Adam alayhi salam was way before Musa alayhi salam, because Musa alayhi salam is after Yusuf alayhi salam and after Yaqub alayhi salam, and which means he's after Ishaq alayhi salam and after Ibrahim alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam much later, and Adam alayhi salam is the first man. So he said, when did Musa meet Adam? Now, obviously, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make the Anbiya meet each other even after death. For example, in Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj, when Rasulullah was going Isra wal-Mi'raj, he met many of the Anbiya. And this is all on the control of Allah. Even in the barzakhi life, they can meet each other, they can have conversations. If Allah has said it happened, if the Prophet said it happened, we believe in it. Right? Allah is qadir over all of that. Tayyib. But this man, he made this remark, and before Abu Muawiyah al-Dharir could answer, Hārūn al-Rashīd became upset. He didn't care that, oh, this guy is a big shot, or I don't want to upset him, or I need him for my political base, I need his support to make sure, or he's my relative, it's okay, he's my kinfolk, he's my blood. No. He told him, Anta zindiq, and you are zindiq, you are somebody who has left Islam. And he became upset, and he said, call for my sword. And they used to have a mat that was basically, when you were going to execute somebody, you lay it down so it absorbs the blood, and the palace and the place doesn't get too dirty with the blood flowing. And this was a very dangerous mat. If it came, meaning somebody's getting their head chopped off. So he said, call for that mat, the slaughter mat, I guess you could call it, and my sword. Because this man has done ta'an fi hadith al-Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yani, he has objected to a hadith. If you know the hadith is sahih, you should just believe in it. And obviously, hadith is sahih, he mentioned it sanadan. So, here, Abu Muawiyah, the one who was narrating the hadith, then said, oh, Amirul Mu'mineen, it's okay, let him go. Yani, he was just asking, he didn't understand, he didn't mean to object to it. It's not an objection. And the person, his face became pale and he started to tremble, because he knew Hārūn al-Rashīd, when he said something, he meant it. And that's a lesson for us today. Those juhala, those ignorant today that have objections to the Quran and to the hudud of Sharia and to the ahkam of Sharia and to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, learn from the salaf of this ummah. And those leaders of ours that are not there doing amr bin ma'roof and nahl munkar in the Muslim lands, and under those that are under their authority, should learn from the salaf of this ummah how to deal with these situations. Hārūn al-Rashīd had ghira for Islam. He had that love for the ulema. In one of the authentic narrations, he had a alim, his name is Simmak, and we study him in the Kutub of Rijal for the narrators of Hadith, Simmak. He came and he sat with Hārūn al-Rashīd. And Hārūn al-Rashīd became very thirsty. And whatever he was doing, he was extremely thirsty. He called for water. So they brought a jug of water to be brought. And while they were bringing that jug of water, Simmak, he asked Hārūn al-Rashīd that if somebody was to tell you at this point of extreme thirst that you cannot get water in the whole world, till the day of judgment, to no timeline, you cannot get water, except if you are willing to pay for it, how much would you pay for it? Hārūn al-Rashīd was honest. He said, look, if I'm dying of thirst, then what does everything else matter? I'm going to die of thirst. He said, I would give half my whole kingdom. Half my kingdom is yours, just water, out of that extreme need. And you die, what's the point of your kingdom if you're dead? Sammak, he told him, Barakallah laka, may Allah put barakah in for your drink. Hārūn al-Rashīd drank the water until he was quenched his thirst and he was sitting. Then he wanted to get up or go to qada al-haja. He wanted to go urinate. Obviously when you drink a lot of water, you got to go to the bathroom. When he's about to go, Simmak told him, O Amirul Mu'mineen, right now you have a haja, you have to go to the bathroom, right? He goes, yes. He told him, what if somebody stopped that? Where you couldn't urinate. It was just building and causing pain and discomfort, and it would just continue on unless you had to pay. What would you pay? He said, if there is water and you really have to, when you really have to go and you can't, and you're burning and you can't sleep and can't live, he said, I would give my whole kingdom. just to be able to be at ease. Then Sammak told, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, then why would people have such kibr? Why would people kill people? Why would they break the hudud of Sharia for a kingdom that is not worth more than a drink of water and urinating it away? And we need to think what all Allah gave us. When you drink water, when you eat food, when you easily pass the food on with urination, qada al-haja and stool or whatever, when this digestive process works, it's a big ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah took away any of these bounties, the whole world and all the treasures, and it would mean nothing to you. Hārūn al-Rashīd would start to cry and remember Allah, and he would realize this. One of the ulema that sat with him gave him an advice. Beautiful advice, I'm summarizing here for time. He said, it is better to be friends with the one who instills fear in you until you're at a place of peace, than one who promises you peace until you reach a place you feared. It's a very deep statement. I wish I had time to go into tashrih, any explanation, but I don't, so I'm going to summarize and try to just give you understanding, because Hārūn al-Rashīd told him, explain this to me. He didn't just say, okay, whatever. He wanted to explain it. He said, some of the ulema, they go to the Khalifa and they just tell him, oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, you are doing so good, you are such a pious person, you've done jihad, you've done this, don't worry about anything, you are maghfur, and you are forgiven, you are this, you are that. And till today we have people like that. Anytime they go to a president or they go to a king, even to a kafir, they're kissing up. They're just mentioning what they want to hear. When they go see a king, they're like, sir, sir, yes, begging and kissing and looking and whatever. Not reminding them, but they are not good friends. They are not giving nasiha. Because the good person is the one that gives you nasiha. Tells you be careful. Don't go towards sins. Or ordain the Sharia. Rule by the kitab of Allah, by the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Live by justice. Don't waste. Allah will hold you accountable. He will put that fear of Allah on you until you reach Al-Jannah, the place of peace. That's the good friend. That's the good alim. That's the one you should keep company with. And somebody that's like, no, it's okay, it's halal for you. No, it's okay, halal. We'll find a fatwa for you. This is halal and this is halal. Until you reach that day of judgment, the place of fear, and you enter the Jahannam because of all the sins, that's not a good alim. That's not a good person to give you nasiha. That's not a good advisor for you. The time of Hārūn al-Rashīd is remembered in the books of Islam as the days of honeymoon, or the days of when you're getting married, in the sense that these were the very happy days. During that time period, the Muslim Ummah was successful. There was somewhat more of a unity. Jihads were being won, victorious. There wasn't a lot of fitan that we'll talk about, the mahna and stuff that comes later here. It was a good time. And this went on until Hārūn al-Rashīd went out for one of the ghazawat, one of the battles, and he died in that travel. Not during the battle, but he was out traveling, and we know that the one who goes out fi sabilillah and dies even without fighting is a shaheed. There is a hadith sahih and sarih on this. So we hope from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Hārūn al-Rashīd was a shaheed. And before that, he had two sons. He had two sons. We mentioned this earlier. One was named Amin, and he was from Zubaydah, from his very pious and what historians have said to be a very beautiful wife. And he had another son, Ma'mun, who was from one of the women that came in from Ghanima, but he treated them very, with equally, exactly, with fair values, and this is the beautiful thing in Islam. And he would send them to learn adab. This is a very important point I'm going to make. Please focus on this. He would send his sons to learn etiquette. Not just to learn technology and learn knowledge and Quran and Hadith, but he would send them to learn etiquette. A parent should either themselves teach their children etiquette, or they should send them to a scholar to learn etiquette. This is a very important aspect of Islam that's lost today. When I went to go study myself, the sheikh that was my main sheikh at the time, a sheikh Sadiq al-Manna, Sheikh Dr. Allama Sadiq al-Manna, originally from Sudan, studied in Sharia, in Quran and Hadith in Saudi for more than 30 years, memorized the Quran, memorized Tafsir ibn Kathir, memorized books of Hadith, great scholar. So I went to go study with him. I wanted to study Quran, I wanted to study Hadith, I wanted to study fiqh, I wanted to study all these subjects. He told me, what did you study in adab, in etiquettes? And that was a very strange question to me, like, what do you mean? And he told me, we will start with the book Al-Ifadat of Ibn Balban, to learn adab, to learn etiquettes. And that's how we advise our students as well, to begin with Hilyat Talib Ilm, or one of these books to teach you etiquettes, how to seek knowledge, how to deal with your parents, how to deal with your siblings, how to deal with your neighbors, how to have proper manners. There's a very important lesson here to learn. One of the examples of how he taught his kids etiquettes is one time he tested his kids. Al-Rashid, he would test his kids. He asked his son Amin about the word siwak. Miswak, the one that we use for cleaning our teeth, the siwak. He told him, what is the jam'a? What is the plural in Arabic for siwak? And the plural is masawik. That is the actual linguistic correct answer. But masawika, it can also mean your faults. In Arabic, ka, if it's used as a damir, then it can also mean your faults. Now, what is the correct answer? Masawik. So, Amin, he answered his father, he said, dear father, with the best respectful way, he said, the jam'a is masawik. He told him, okay. Then he called Ma'mun. Ma'mun had better etiquette than Amin. He told Ma'mun the same question. He asked Ma'mun, what is the jam'a for miswak or siwak? Ma'mun knew the answer, it's masawik. But because the word masawik could also mean your faults, he had such respect for his father, he could not give that answer. And he didn't talk back to it. Those things are unheard of people of good etiquettes. But he couldn't even say to his father a word that, if used out of context, could mean something bad, let alone somebody using a rude word to their father today. So he said, the jama for siwak is ضد محاسنك, the opposite of your good qualities. محاسنك your good qualities. Masawika, your bad qualities. So he didn't say miswak. He said the word that is the opposite of your great qualities, my dear father, is the jam'a for siwak. Look at the etiquettes of the people of our ummah of the past. How they would respect their parents, how they would respect their father, what beautiful etiquettes they had, how respectfully they spoke to their parents. This is what we are missing in our ummah today. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who benefit from this knowledge and bring implementation into our lives and teach us the best of adab and akhlaq. Allahumma ameen.